My name's Phil Anthony Patane, and I'm the Northern District Manager and Agricultural Machinery Specialist for Sugar Research Australia. The innovation is HarvestMate, and what HarvestMate is a harvesting decision support tool that was developed by Sugar Research Australia and the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries Queensland. And pretty much what it is that it's a economic and agronomic decision support tool to assist sugarcane growers and harvesting operators to identify what the optimal practice is, or the optimal practices are when harvesting a block of sugarcane. So what HarvestMate actually does is it takes out a whole suite of agronomic information from variety to crop class, yield, how the presentation is in front of the machine, and a whole list of other agronomic information, and overlays that with the cost component to harvest that block of cane, which ends up spitting out a net grower revenue and a cost change to harvesting. So it is actually the first of its kind in regards to taking a look at the overall economic and agronomic cost of harvesting, but also what that yield change is. So it sort of finds the balance between yield change through harvesting practice versus cost change through harvesting practices. To start with, to understand, what the operation was performed in the past. Like I said earlier, it was purely, you're heavily relying on that operator experience. Like that's right. But the other thing is that as a grower, and sitting here as a grower and identifying for a grower, he wouldn't know what that meant if he changed certain parameters on that harvester. So like fan speed and ground speed, so primary extractor and secondary extractor fan speed versus the forward motion that he's traveling. He wouldn't know the changes in that, what that meant for his revenue. It was purely an assumption, or he would actually have to require Sugar Research Australia to come out there and do a harvesting trial, which is pretty intensive, but would only be representative of that one block that he's done. So this allows the grower and harvesting operator to do a range of scenarios and find out, okay, what's the best for your business and what's the best for my business, and come up with a compromise and have that hard discussion of, okay, this practice is best for us. And at times, we've seen it plenty of times, multiple times, that the operation that the current operator is doing is the optimal. So that's perfect. That reassures everyone that I know that last 12 months that I've been growing that sugarcane crop, I've got to the final stage of harvesting. I know that that's optimal as well. Obviously, how a harvester actually works, feeding cane through the machine, butt first through the machine. And then the two things that we're changing is ground speed. So it impacts how much material is fed through that machine. So how much cane. So the faster you go, more material. And sometimes faster in some situations, depending on the crop size, might be optimal when you're taking a look at the cost change. And sometimes slower is optimal as well. It just depends on what that crop size is. But it also links in fan speed, and that is how clean the cane is. So turning that fan up really high, the primary and secondary extractor, what it ends up doing is that it ends up sucking out a large proportion of material, but that large proportion of material does include a fair bit of sugar cane as well. So, sorry, I just grabbed this. So what I'm talking about, looking at the harvester here, I'm talking about the forward motion that machine goes, primary extractor here of what's cleaning, secondary extractor here, and what we're purely changing is the forward motion versus these two here. So the amount of material that's feeding through that machine versus how clean it is, and that's what we're changing on that machine. So you've got to be careful, because if you go too slow with too low of a fan speed, it's your cost of harvesting is going to go through the roof, and it's not viable. And then you can go the other end of the scale, is you can go too fast and too high fan speed, where all of a sudden cane is thrown out significantly, and the percentage of leaf in sent to the mill is too high. So that's the balance that we're trying to find, in that sweet spot, overarching with with cost of harvesting. So the economic and I guess the social side is, I guess the main thing for this is the economic side, obviously improvement in revenue, but not only for those growers and harvesting groups, but the regional cities, the regional towns that we're based in, is that, if there's more money being captured, there's more money being fed back into those regional towns, the shops, the places that we all love to go. So that's one. The second thing is in regards to the social side is purely looking at, being able to, if we're improving efficiency, there's other things that we can then start doing. We've got more time to do other things and with on our farm or even that social side. If you take a look at the sustainable side too, is that, you're increasing yield that is on that particular block of cane. So if we can increase yield at times on that one particular block of cane, well, that's sustainable in itself. That's sustainability. That means that the quality that we're getting from that one block of cane is increased in yield over time. It's really self-explanatory. It's pretty easy. If you can use an app, if you can use a computer, we've got a user guide on there already. But it is pretty self-explanatory that we've got big pictures on there that you click on there, you go into your machinery setup page, then you go into your in-field logistics that looks at the whole farm per se and those individual blocks, and then you actually go into different scenarios and whatnot. So that's pretty self-explanatory. When you open an app, opening the app, you can see a whole list of all the information that you've entered, and you can see different practices that you should do and you can change. I guess the difference between the two is the web is where you put all your information into. It's really easy to do it on a computer, whereas the app is I can be in my harvester and I can say, okay, look, if I do this practice in this field here, is it optimal? Bang, I can look straight away and go, okay, yep, I'm happy with that, or I might go to another practice, whether it's faster or slower. I guess this might be a good opportunity that when I came out of year 12, I was uncertain what I wanted to do. Now, I have a Bachelor of Agricultural Science degree and I've got a Masters of Business Administration. So why did I go to agriculture? Well, I find it really rewarding. I didn't go to university straight away. I took 12 months off to get an understanding of what I wanted to do. And what really excited me about agriculture is that it's really rewarding. The people that you work with and on ground, it's just refreshing that, you're directly impacting their business. And, in a positive light that you're assisting. But not only that, I find it rewarding personally with my personal development because there is a wealth of knowledge out there of growers and harvesting operators and millers that I feed off, and I go, wow, I didn't know this or I didn't know that. So it really is now. I'm not going to question that. It also has its challenges as well, and you've got to be on to things and always learning and new ideas and innovation and new projects. But I guess that's the exciting part of agriculture. It feeds the world. You're always going to need food. Everyone needs food. So it's not going anywhere anytime soon because we need to feed Australia. We need to feed the world. And the opportunities out there for this, I would highly recommend a career in agriculture. I love it, and I'm sure other people will too.